There's a saying, I think, in the trade. What are they? There's a difference between religious civility and civil religion. Religious civility means that all the denominations and sects and various faith communities learn to live together and get on with one another. If they can't achieve that, there's a temptation by the state to start to impose a state religion. Now, that's what these boys might be saying, because if they want us to go back to Western civilization, they've got to be careful, because which Western civilization? Northern Europe, Southern Europe? Which bit? I'm happy if in fact they encourage the study of religions, all religions, as being, of course, part of our history, but I think that religion becomes a problem when in fact you stop asking questions about it. So if it's part of the curriculum where students are invited and in fact encouraged to ask questions, it won't become a problem. It's got to be all open to discussion. And then it becomes an adventure for kids.
So, Father Bob, what do you make of the point being made that religious study would help students to understand the underpinnings of Australia's major institutions, particularly political institutions? Is that not something that would be a positive?
Oh, it is a positive. In fact, if you can open it out and see that the people who are speaking are probably about 50 years of age. Australia's come a long way over the last, 20, 30 years. And those blokes who are middle-aged, in fact, have got to realise that kids these days have got access through the internet to all kinds of information. They press a button and they get the complete history of Catholicism in Australia. But you see, to get the complete history of religion in Australia, you've got to be pretty ruthless, because you've got to cover everything. How the Protestants became so powerful early, because of their use of understanding of money. How the Roman Catholics had to put up with being considered to be terrorists during the 20s and 30s, when Australia had a bunch of people called the secret armies. You have to be prepared to see the place of Islam in Australia during the time when the Afghans were here as camel drivers. I think it's a magnificent story if it can be treated as an adventure. Let the kids in on every aspect of all of the religions that have gone to make this place the exciting place it is.
So a lot of viewpoints then to be considered, and of course religious backgrounds. The point also being made by the Minister for Education, Christopher Pyne, in terms of the national curriculum as a whole, was that he wanted to redress what he perceived as a partisan bias in the current national curriculum. How challenging do you think that sort of approach or challenge would be?
Depends who's in power, doesn't it? And that's one of the failures, and one of the good points. Depends on which way you look at it, of being in a democracy. Because if the socialists are in power, you're going to have kind of progressive, let's open everything up to discussion attitude. And if the Conservatives are in power, they say, excuse me, there's core business here, which in fact must be reinstalled to make sure that this country is financially secure. It's got to keep out invaders like asylum seekers. I mean, it's a philosophy. It's a philosophical thing that you can see coming every time there's an election. And it means that we have to turn Australia quickly into what's called a civil society, where all the citizens are alert and keep their eyes on the politicians who may just sneak away with an ideology, as occurred in Europe during the 30s. We've got to keep our eyes open. Not that these men mean harm, they're not malicious, but in fact sometimes Australia's got to be seen as the most blessed country in the world. We're so free that we're able to be silly. And that's the period we're in now. You see, I mean, we've got cricket, we've got tennis, we've got everything else going on in the place because we're so free. And at the same time, when you're that free, sometimes you see you can't pay attention to fundamentals. So I do hope the Australian people realise what a privilege we have after 100 and whatever it is, 200 years. We've got to study Aboriginal spirituality, and we've got to study all the spiritualities, including the one that we scoff at when we're in power, if we're conservatives, and that's secularism. I think secularism is as sacred as religion. I think it is.